ọ̀dọ̀ Ọlọ́run wá. Can we all discern that? Is it possible for us to discern that? So if it's not possible, then therefore, we all agree that the devil can use anyone, especially to destabilize anyone. The devil can use the youngest child in this assembly to try to destabilize the leader. So when such challenges come, focus on why you're here. Focus. Because no matter what the challenge is, and I know why I'm saying what I'm saying, a couple of you also know why. So kò sí bí a ṣe máa wà níbí báyìí tá a máa rò pé gbogbo wa we are in one accord, which we must hope to accomplish. Be in one accord so that we will not allow the devil amidst us. The devil is not going to come like a masquerade. He's not going to come physically. The devil will come to you and make you feel like there is nothing like you. Thank you. That is what the devil will do. That has always been his modus operandi. Ẹ̀wọ̀ Ọlọ́run yìí ò láìkí ẹ, òun ló fi jẹ́ kó wà níbí, ibi tó yẹ kó wà rí, mo dẹ̀ lè gbé ẹ débẹ̀. Àbí? In the video that Shepherd sent over the weekend, I don't know how many platforms to which he sent them, but I know he sent them to at least 2 platforms. It was a man that a pastor thought was a man of God that he looked up to, that wanted to take him to a higher height. Torí pé Jésù nìkan ò tó. But as Christians, that must not be our portion. We must not be found to think that Christ is not enough. In every way, even when we are suffering, Christ is enough. Even when we allow ourselves to be consumed by anxiety, Christ is enough. Even when we take exams in school and we failed, Christ is enough. So we should not think that Christ is not enough in any and in every circumstance. So what happened? The people were in one accord. And the first thing they decided to do was to build an altar. Why was it important that building an altar was the number one priority? You go back to the purpose for why they left, that they were freed from captivity to worship their God. Even when you gather together in an assembly, in a temple, there is a place where you offer your offering. That is where you and your God communicate the most intimately, especially in those days. Hence, altar was primary. Everywhere Abraham went, that's about it. You know, then you have and what is that area? Altar. And so, people of God, they all agreed that they were going to build an altar for the purpose of offering sacrifices to God. Because offering sacrifices to God is and was a part of the worship. Why they left in the first place. Why they came to Judah in the first place. So they gathered together and they built that altar. But I don't want this fact of the 3rd verse to be lost on us. Because they did whatever they did, it appeared that verse 3 says, for fear was upon them because of the people of those countries. Fear was upon them. Ẹjọ́ mo ní question kan tẹ́ ẹ bá tẹ́ lè dá mi lóhùn. Mọ́mí wa ni màá pick pé kó dá mi lóhùn. tẹ́ ẹ̀ bá tẹ́ tí gbogbo ẹ̀yin ò bá tẹ́ dá mi lóhùn ẹ̀yà ready. ẹ̀yin lẹ̀mí dá mi ló darí mi sílé ní báyìí ẹ̀yin lẹ̀ rí kàn báyìí. ẹ jọ̀ọ́ tí lion bá wọnú ilé láti bẹ̀ kí ló máa ṣẹlẹ̀? Everybody asa. Mommy ṣe agree pé everybody máa scatter ni. Àwọn tẹ́yìn náà agree nìyẹn. But let us examine that reaction. What that reaction said is, God be damned. Yes, we are gathered here to worship God. Ṣùgbọ́n lion yìí ó tó lágbára jọ Ọlọ́run yìí lọ ẹ jẹ́ ká sí. I mean, is that not the reason for our action? And what drove us? Has torment. Yes, fear has torment. I agree with you. Fear has torment in it. And that torment is what takes us away from God when we respect the fear more than God. But we see an irony in here, because if we just read that passage and let it go, we will not appreciate what is happening here. Fear was upon the people as they were building the altars. And what was the fear? Àwọn èèyàn yìí á dá wa dúró. Kò tí ẹ̀ ń ṣe ẹranko. Àwọn èèyàn yìí á dá wa dúró. Wọ́n ti gbàgbé wípé ìwé ẹ̀rí náà gbé dání o. Pé anybody ò lágbára láti dá wọn dúró. That is what devil does. He will make you forget the source of your power. He will make you forget the source of your strength. And so you'll be running helter-skelter. But rather than do that, kí làwọn people yìí ṣe? Esther, ṣe báyìí. Kí ló ṣe? Wọ́n wá redouble effort wọn. Wọ́n parí altar yẹn. Because the worship of God was supreme. That was the supreme purpose. That's what we are talking about when we say you worship God, but is God number one? So God must always be number one. And they demonstrated this here. Fear of the people. Whoa, discountenance fear here. They owned up to it that there was fear, yet the work of God must be done. The purpose for which we came here must be satisfied. Come on, waste time while noticing. The altar was built, and immediately they began to use it. They began to use it. Wọ́n wá ṣe pé ní Sunday báwa ti ń ṣe àbí? Báwo làwọn ti ń ṣe tiwọn? BID. Gbogbo ẹ̀yin nọ́ọ̀sì dà. Kí ni BID? Morning and evening. BID. Twice a day. Ona wọ́n fa offering yìí. Which tells you, how much they missed the worship of their God. Because there was a covenant. And they returned to that covenant through the help of the scribes that God has appointed to them. People like Ezra, people like Nehemiah, that God has, appointed for them. They went back to the covenant book because God does not change. Our land change. Our land sọ pé ẹ jẹ́ ká fi ojú ayé òde ìsìn wò. Àbí ojú ayé òde ìsìn kọ́ la máa fi wò tá a bá gbàgbàkúgbà láyé ojú ayé òde ìsìn náà la fi ń wò adẹ̀ ń gbàgbàkúgbà láyé. Ó ṣòfin o. Ó fún wa ní covenant o. Gbogbo ẹ̀kúnnú Deuteronomy bẹ́ẹ̀. But then we will rationalize. Because the fear of not belonging, the fear of being cancelled was more paramount than obeying God's word. And God is faithful. God is always faithful. He will not change his standard just because we pay ẹ̀yin sọ ọkùnrin dóbìnrin. Òun create ẹ̀ ó ní pé ó create ọkùnrin. Ó create obìnrin àbí individually. Ó ní ṣùgbọ́n ó wá create wọn ní half-half. Yet òun create wọn ní half-half. Because they are not whole until the two come together. And there should be only one thing amongst them, and that's me, God. Èmi ni mo so wọ́n pọ̀, ṣùgbọ́n ẹ̀yin ní rárá. Ẹni pé àfìgbà tọkùnrin bá pé ta ló máa ń read gbogbo news o torí máa ń béèrè question kan o torí tán bá máa kọ news lórí ọ̀rọ̀ gender yìí wọ́n á ní pé ẹnìkan was assigned a gender at birth. Assigned yẹn ṣáà náà máa ń lò mo tó lọ wo dictionary àti pé bóyá bíríní míì wà fún assign. Ta wá ló ń ṣe assignment yìí o a gbọ́dọ̀ dárúkọ ẹ̀ wá a gbọ́dọ̀ acknowledge ẹ̀ o. We must not. But the person was assigned the wrong gender. Ǹjẹ́ Ọlọ́run á lè wrong ìbí? So ẹ jẹ́ ká mọ Ọlọ́run tí àwa ń sìn. Wọ́n build the altar yìí, wọ́n dẹ̀ bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí ní lò for the purpose for which it was built. But then the altar cannot stay by itself. It has to be within the context of a temple. And without further ado, they began the work on the temple. As soon as the altar was done and they started to make the offerings and sacrifices and they started to celebrate all the feasts that were appointed to them by covenant, now they turned to the issue of building the temple. They knew they didn't have all the power, all the strength, all the materials, but God will provide. And God provided through the king that released the treasury to say, go and use it. And then that said, everyone around, just take the decree, take your testimonial to them. Everyone around must give. Kì í ṣe pé wọn ní choice no matter yìí. Mi ò like àwọn Jews no matter yìí. They must give nítorí pé decree ti jáde. Ọba àwọn ọba, ó control ọba ayé láti ṣe ìfẹ́ rẹ̀. Ọba ayé ò ní láti mọ̀ k'Ọlọ́run tó lò. Because kò lè débi tó wà yẹn láì jẹ́ pé ọba ọ̀run gbà láyè. Bẹ́ẹ̀ gẹ́gẹ́ ló ṣe jẹ́ títí dìsìn. Bẹ́ẹ̀ gẹ́gẹ́ ló ṣe jẹ́ títí. Èèyàn kankan ò lè di ọba ìlú láì jẹ́ pé Ọlọ́run mọ̀ sí o. Àwa la máa ń rò pé gbogbo ọba ìlú gbọ́dọ̀ ṣe rere. Nta máa ń rò nìyẹn. Then we fix ourselves on that. Ọlọ́run lè lò fún punishment wa now. So ẹ jẹ́ ká mọ Ọlọ́run tá à ń sìn ní tòótọ́ ṣùgbọ́n nígbà tí wọ́n parí tí wọ́n lay foundation temple yìí, now we have two categories of people. Those who were old enough to see the old temple and those who were not old enough to see the old temple but appreciated that they had moved so far. And you see that joy and weeping were mixed together. Àwọn kan ń rò pé àṣẹ ilé yìí tún lè padà wá. Gbogbo iṣẹ́ tí Nebuchadnezzar ṣe tó destroy the temple, tó destroy the foundation, everything. Àṣẹ Ọlọ́run tún lè ṣe. Ẹkún gbọ̀n wọ́n. Ṣùgbọ́n àwọn tí wọ́n ṣe rí wípé ń tòótọ́ à ń bọ̀ wá sí Ọlọ́run wa ń bí ni wọ́n yọ̀. Ọlọ́run á fi ayọ̀ kún ọkàn wa. Ní agbára Kristi, Ọlọ́run á fi ayọ̀ kún ọkàn wa. Ẹ̀mí mímọ́ rẹ̀ á darí wa láti lè sìn ní òtítọ́ àti ní òdodo ní orúkọ Jésù Olúwa wa.